Forest Woods Media presents 20th Century Poets. Listen to this minute commentary on Robert Hass, U.S. Poet Laureate from 1995 to 1997. Stanley Kunitz once said this of Robert Hass: "Reading a poem by Robert Hass is like stepping into the ocean when the temperature of the water is not much different from that of the air. You scarcely know until you feel the undertow tug at you that you have entered into another element." This is a good description because it calls upon nature to describe Robert Hass. Of all our poets, Hass is probably the most actively committed environmentalist who has dedicated his life to connecting art and the physical world. While Poet Laureate of the United States, Robert Hass announced the idea that imagination makes communities. He has continued to travel the country, bringing together literary artists who talk about community and ecological concerns. In his own poems, we meet all the forces of nature and also the made world. Hass praises life. He does not dwell on death. He said, poetry that says yes has to swallow great goblets of darkness first. He talks of the painter Monet, whose lily paintings were begun in response to reports of the dead in the trenches of the First World War. Hass has devoted much time to the work of Polish Nobel laureate Czesław Miłosz, who was able to praise life, even having survived terrors that his compatriots did not survive. Robert Hass is influenced by Asian thought and Japanese poetry. He translates Basho, 17th century poet, one of the initiators of the haiku form. What Hass loves, he says, is the creation of an aesthetic ideal in language. Language as a clear mirror of seeing the world, the image. He thinks connection to the common world must be earned over and over. The image does this. Language can call the world into being and call us by being there. He says what we write is drenched in the self because language is, but you can try to use it to represent what doesn't belong to the self entirely. The struggle with human relations is always present in his work, and Hass asks what we can be to each other. He says that we live in families, not on islands. Human policy is a transaction of affection, a kind of market system. Just as economic markets make networks, imagination can form networks. Robert Hass has spent his life doing just this. I'm Grace Cavalieri. Funding is provided by the Cy Nippert Fund. Our producer is Jack Tarashuk. Our engineer is Mike Turpin.